What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. Excuse the blurry. I'm going to continue my conversation with you concerning the complete history of boxing. Yesterday, we looked at Mike Tyson and Terrell Biggs and Mike Tyson and Michael Spinks. Just a brief look at his scrapbook. But I want to go back for one moment. I've been following Mike Tyson since he was 16 years old. Went all over his amateur competitions. I was at the Colorado Springs. I was at Lake Placid. I was at the Ohio Fest. It was quite an experience following him, and every professional bout he had except for Japan when he was stopped by Douglas. I was at every single Mike Tyson fight. So I know a lot of insight of Mike Tyson in his boxing career. Now, Mike Tyson would become professional in 1985. He fought Hector Mercedes. Now, I just want to tell you some insights about how they were moving along Mike Tyson. Because I'm there, I see what's happening during that time. Mike Tyson was the most frightening fighter for these young men coming up. Because Mike Tyson was from Brooklyn. He was picked on as a young man, and he eventually fought back when someone tore the head off of his pigeon. I mean, the story's out there. And he just didn't care anymore. And when you look at a fighter like a Mike Tyson, there's a lot that's inside of him mentally and in his heart. And when you fight a fighter like that, he is extremely dangerous. Now, Mike Tyson, like I said, he turned professional in 1985 when he fought Hector Mercedes. I was at that fight. And he would become the heavyweight champion, winning the WBC, facing Trevor Berbick, November 22nd of 1986 in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was in the second row of that bout. Mike Tyson was trained by Kevin Rooney. Trevor Berbick was trained by Angelo Dundee. And Mike Tyson was a fighter that literally you had to kill Mike Tyson when he was coming up in those amateurs. He was such a devoted trainer when it came to train. He was such a devoted young man. Watch fight films. He could tell you everything about boxing. And I admire that of Mike Tyson. He was a hell of a fighter. Had a lot of rage in him. But he would become the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. But he won the WBC. Floyd Patterson would become the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history at the age of 21. But he won universal recognition of that title. Because Rocky Marciano would hang up the gloves in 1956. His last bout was with Archie Moore in 1955. He would stop Archie Moore in 9 rounds. And he looked at the landscape. I'm speaking of Rocky Marciano. He saw Bob Baker. He saw Tommy Hurricane Jackson. He saw Nino Valdez. And he said, you know what the hell with this? I had my run, and I'm going to leave. And he did. So he relinquished the title. He officially hung up the gloves in 56, and he appointed Archie Moore, who he knocked out in 9 rounds, and Floyd Patterson, who was the Olympic middleweight champion in the Helsinki Games in 1952. Now, the heavyweight champion in 1952 was a fighter by the name of Ed Sanders. Ed Sanders defeated Ingemar Johansson, and it became a very interesting rivalry between Johansson and Floyd Patterson. So when Floyd Patterson defeated Archie Moore, stopping him in 5 rounds, he then became the heavyweight champion, but the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. He's also the only fighter who can claim the first 2-time heavyweight champion in boxing history. Remarkable. But Mike Tyson would be mentored by Floyd Patterson because Floyd Patterson was trained by Cus D'Amato. In fact, I think I showed you, and I'll show you again, Mike Tyson was holding the glove of Archie Moore and Floyd Patterson. It was the official glove, and he was holding it. I'll show you that again. But Mike Tyson would become the youngest heavyweight champion, so we're going to give him that, but it was for the WBC. November 22nd, 1986, when he knocked out Trevor Berbick in 2 rounds. Trevor Berbick went down 3 times for 1 punch. It was a vicious left hook. Then Mike Tyson would fight again March 7th, 1987 against James Bone Crusher Smith in Las Vegas, Nevada. What was interesting about that was James Bone Crusher Smith was not supposed to fight Mike Tyson. He was a last-minute replacement, and he took on Tim Witherspoon in New York's Madison Square Garden. Mike Tyson was in the second row, as I was. What was interesting, when Tim Witherspoon went down the first time, Luis Rodriguez was the referee. Do I have his name right? We'll get back to that in a moment. But he went down the first time, and I can see Bill Caton had the folder, and he was squeezing the folder. The second time Bone Crusher Smith knocked down Tim Witherspoon, Jimmy Jacobs had the briefcase and threw it on the floor. Or I might have it backwards. It might have been Bill Clayton that had the briefcase and threw it on the floor, and Jim Jacobs squeezed the folder. But that's what happened. You see Mike Tyson stand up like he couldn't believe what was happening. So Bone Crusher Smith now became Mike Tyson's unification championship tournament opponent, if you will. Bone Crusher Smith would now own the WBA Heavyweight Championship title. And these two men would mix it up March 7th, 1987 in Las Vegas, Nevada. I remember Bone Crusher Smith knocking down, he basically knocked him out, Pinklin Thomas at Times Square Boxing Ring. Times Square Boxing Ring used to be on 42nd Street. It was on the 2nd floor. They closed it now, but that's where Terrence Ali, a lot of fighters, Bobby Joe Young used to train there. So I witnessed that happen. The next thing I know, I see Bone Crusher Smith in the ring with Tim Witherspoon. So when he knocks out Tim Witherspoon, because it was a 3 knockdown rule, no one knew of that rule, but apparently Tim Witherspoon, and I could be wrong, but that's what we come up with, and Slim Jim Robinson, something might have been signed, and before you know it, that rule was in effect. So Mike Tyson would take on Tony Tucker August 1st, 1987, and he would become the IBF heavyweight champion. That bout went on 12 rounds. They didn't want it to go 15 rounds, so they changed it to 12 rounds. Now, I want you to read something with me for a second so I can explain to you. In fact, let's go to the top here. The Road to the Gold. And what this says is, this was a profile of the Olympic champions, who they thought might make it to the Olympic team in 1984. At the 1983 National Sports Festival in June, the media treated super heavyweight boxer Terrell Biggs with a different usual accordant to the professional champion. Biggs currently holds the world amateur boxing title at 201 plus pounds. That's super heavyweight in the amateurs. But holding it much longer seems less than assured. He won the title with a very close decision over Italian super heavyweight champion Francisco Damiani. Let's stop right there for one moment. Francisco Damiani was an Italian heavyweight. He was the first WBO heavyweight champion, the first one you had. And he was also the European heavyweight champion. Now, he won that WBO title in 1989. He held it to 1991. And Mike Tyson at that time was considered unified, and he was universally recognized as the heavyweight champion. But Francisco Damiani was out there with the WBO. They didn't really respect or look at the WBO as a unified, belt, but he was out there. And Mike Tyson has sparred with Francisco Damiani in the amateurs. Damiani always gave Mike Tyson hell. They didn't want to fight Francisco Damiani, is what I'm trying to tell you. He was one fighter they went around. They didn't want to fight Francisco Damiani because Damiani was a problem. Let's continue. Where were we? Where were we? Close decision to Francisco Damiani, but lost to the Cuban three-time Olympic gold medalist winner Theo Stevenson, who broke Briggs' ribs, then stopped him in the second round of their meeting last year. At 6'5" and 218 pounds, Briggs is big and hard. Now, I want to show you something. Mike Tyson was 16 years old. Cus D'Amato and Mike Tyson may be at the Olympics next summer instead of Briggs. All right, let's take a look at something for one moment. Before we go further, this is the page that I'm showing you. Super heavyweight Mike Tyson. It gives you an entire write-up. You know, his national golden gloves and everything else. So let's look at something for one moment. Point I'm trying to make here. So here you have Mike Tyson and Cus D'Amato. And you can see Mike Tyson with his amateur jacket on. Mike Tyson was a terror in those amateurs, I'll tell you. He won the Empire State Games. I was at that event. He won the Nationals and the Golden Gloves. He was something else. He won that several times, a couple years in a row. Now, I just wanted to show you this man here. His name was Henry Tillman. He was from Los Angeles. Now, Mike Tyson kept moving up from the heavyweight to the super heavyweight, back down to the heavyweight to the super heavyweight. And this is the reason why, this man right here. Now, let's go and look at, this was the national amateur rankings, all right? Here you have the super heavyweight division, over 201 pounds. Tyrell Biggs is the man we're talking about when we were reading that article. He's from Philadelphia. Number 2, you had Craig Payne from Michigan. Iron Mike Tyson was number 3 from Catskill, New York. Warren Thompson, he was from Baltimore. He was number 4. Camille Odom, number 5, from Gary, Indiana. Number 6 is Tiki Tonga, Salt Lake City. Number 7, Nathaniel Fitch. He was Armory, Hawaii. Number 8 was Richard Larkin from Cincinnati, Ohio. 9 was Jimmy Hoffman, Dayton, Ohio. And 10 was Alan Smith from Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, let's look at a couple of names. I remember every last one of these guys here. Craig Payne, big problem in the amateurs. Mike Tyson they didn't want to fight Craig Payne. He was a problem. Here's another man they didn't want to fight. Number 5, Camille Odom. Let me tell you about Camille Odom. Meldrick Taylor made a comeback. In Atlantic City, he was fighting a fighter by the name of Courtney Hooper. I was in the second row of that fight. In fact, the referee for that bout was Frank Cappuccino. Him and I were sitting together as we were watching this fight here that I'm going to tell you about. Camille Odom was fighting a fighter who was out of Trenton State Prison, and he lived in New Jersey. His name was Big Art Tate. Art Tate and Camille Odom would mix it up that evening. Now, I didn't know Art Tate was fighting that evening because I knew Art Tate. He used to be a car dealer representative. What was that, 12th Avenue? It was a car dealership. What was that car dealership where you used to put the kits on the side of the car? Man, Nissan, what was it? No, not Nissan. Was it Nissan? Oh, I can't think of the name of that car now. We used to put the kits on the side. Oh, boy, I can't think of it. Maxima, Nissan Maxima. Yeah. So he worked for the Nissan dealer. And I used to go there all the time and chop it up with him. But I didn't know he was fighting Camille Odom. And Big Art Tate was knocked out for the first time on that undercard with Camille Odom, because Camille Odom could punch. And Mike Tyson and the amateurs, they didn't want to fight Camille Odom. They didn't want to fight Craig Payne. So Mike Tyson was going up and down from super heavyweight to the heavyweight. Now in the heavyweight, you had Henry Tillman. He was the problem in the heavyweight division. Why? Because he was from Los Angeles. And they were afraid of Mike Tyson getting a raw deal with Henry Tillman because Henry Tillman was from Los Angeles, and that's where they were going to hold the games in '84. So they figured they were going to rob Mike Tyson if Mike Tyson didn't knock out Henry Tillman. Not saying they were right, but that's the way it worked. Mike Tyson would lose to Henry Tillman twice, and he would lose the opportunity to go to the Olympic Games. Now, in that heavyweight division, you had Richard Johnson, Al Evans, Henry Milligan is another fighter. I know a lot of stories about him. And as you can see, the rest of these fighters here. Now, when you go to the light heavyweight division, Ricky Walmat, he was from Detroit. Emanuel Stewart had trained Ricky Walmat. Now, Emanuel Stewart was the head trainer of the 1984 Olympic Games. So that was another affair that they had. Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield would fight Ricky Walmat 3 times because Holyfield didn't have a national title. You need a national title in order to fight in the Olympic Games. Ricky Walmat was a national champion. Look at some of these other names here. Oh, yeah, I remember all of these guys here. Let's have some fun here. Let's go to the middleweights. Virgil Hill. I'll tell you about Virgil Hill. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened here. As you can see, Virgil Hill in the middleweight, 165 pounds, he was ranked number 2. As you see here, a familiar name, number 7, Michael Nunn. I'll tell you what happened with him. Now, Michael Nunn got the raw end of the deal because they pushed him out from the junior middleweight division because they wanted Frank Tate. Frank Tate, in fact, I'll go into that story another time. Well, Frank Tate and Michael Nunn fought each other 3 times. And Frank Tate was the favorite to win a gold medal. So they pushed Michael Nunn up from junior middleweight to middleweight, where he had to take on Virgil Hill. He would lose to Virgil. I'm sitting here looking at all of this stuff here. I was at all of these events, every last one of them. So I don't have the other part to this. I wish I did. I had the other part. But you had Mark Breland, who was a welterweight. He was always ranked number 1, Mark Breland. You had Jerry Page, who was the junior welter. He wound up getting on that team. You had Meldrick Taylor. Now, Meldrick Taylor, tell you about him. Meldrick Taylor, there was a guy by the name of, what was his name? He was in the featherweight division. His name was Favors, was his last name. Let me see, hold on a second. His last name was Favors. And Meldrick Taylor fought from featherweight, welterweight, went back down to lightweight, had to get out of lightweight because Pernell Whitaker was there. So when they turned professional, they all went to main events. And Meldrick Taylor was supposed to be in the featherweight division. You had Rocky Lockridge there, so he couldn't go to lightweight because Pernell Whitaker was there, so he was forced to go to junior welterweight. That wasn't his division. He didn't have any punching power there. As an amateur, Meldrick Taylor was knocking out everybody. He could punch. In the Olympics, he was 5'0", 5'0", 5'0". You couldn't touch Meldrick Taylor, but that's another story. But I just wanted to tell you about the situation with Mike Tyson. They kept moving him around because of politics. And he wound up facing Henry Tillman, and he lost to Henry Tillman twice. He dropped Henry Tillman, but in the amateurs, you can knock a man down 10 times. And that man can just tap you 10 times with the white portion of the glove, and he'll have the same amount of points as you. That's the problem with the amateurs. Well, it's not the problem, but that's the difference in the amateurs than professional. I'm trying to stay away from this glare here. Now, the junior Olympic heavyweight champion was Mike Tyson, making 1-minute KO round, or a routine. Now, his trainer at the time was Teddy Atlas. If you know the story of those two men, they had a falling out because of some personal issues of a family member of Teddy Atlas. And Custody Amato saw future as a champion of Mike Tyson. Obviously, there was money there, and he wasn't going. He had to make a choice between those two men. The man that would make the money for him was Tyson, so he's the man that stayed. So that's just really the bottom line. That's a different conversation. So Mike Tyson won the crown last June by stopping all three of his opponents. His semifinalist foe was Don Carzard. That fight only lasted 8 seconds of the finals. Keaton Brown, I remember him. Yeah, he used to train. In fact, Al Gavin was his trainer. He used to train in Gleason's gym. He was from Texas. Yeah, I remember all of these guys here. Now, as you can see here, Mike Tyson is the creation of Cus D'Amato, who trained heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson and light heavyweight king Jose Torres. D'Amato, you can see here, Teddy Atlas. He has been working out at the legendary D'Amato's Catskill, New York. That was on 14th Street. It was called Gramedy's Gym. I used to go there all the time, and you would see guys like Vito Antuofermo. And in fact, at that gym, that's where all the old-time trainers was. Freddie Brown, you had Ray Arcel. They all used to hang out in Gramedy's Gym. And that was Cus D'Amato's gym. It was on 14th Street. Let's see here. This does carry modified peekaboo style trademark. Tyson raises his rapid fire. Won a Junior Olympic crown for 14, 15-year-olds in 1981 and was defending it this year. All right, so a high school student, 5'11" and a half inches, 210 pounds. All right, let's look at something else. Now, this is a larger picture of the one we just looked at with Mike Tyson and Teddy Atlas. Tyson was a national champion at this point, under the tutelage of Teddy Atlas. Teddy Atlas also trained Kevin Rooney. So that's how Rooney got the gig when Teddy Atlas was sent home packing. Actually, like Teddy Atlas, I met him several times. He's from Staten Island. I have a buddy who's a bus driver in Staten Island, and he met Teddy Atlas because he wanted his son, he wanted Teddy Atlas to teach his son how to defend himself. And Teddy Atlas was gracious enough to refer him to someone who he could trust. I always respected Teddy Atlas. Now, Mike Tyson in the Bronx. This is a rare picture of Mike Tyson. He would train in the Bronx. See, you had a lot of underground fights in the Bronx. And Mike Tyson used to fight there a lot. Now, Mike Tyson was, like I said, they were looking at him as becoming the gold medal winner in the Olympic Games. And it just didn't happen for him because of Henry Tillman. Henry Tillman was a boxer, and that's what bothered Mike Tyson. That's what they tried to avoid Terrell Biggs with. And then he wound up knocking out Terrell Biggs in 1987 in Atlantic City in 7 rounds. I showed you that. I was at that fight. Here you have Mike Tyson. He's a young boy here. I remember those kind of shorts, man, back in the days. He's wearing Adidas. That was a popular sneaker at that time. Let me get a clearer shot. And we used to wear the socks with the stripes. You look back at, but these were the shorts they had at that time. So this is Cus D'Amato, and he's schooling Mike Tyson, showing him how to hold his hands and so on and so forth. That's a young Mike Tyson, and then here's Mike Tyson and Cus D'Amato here. Now, if you see the shirt of Cus D'Amato here, Mike Tyson, a grown man. Mike Tyson here is probably about 19 years old. You see that shirt there? Well, this is the same shirt he was wearing when Mike Tyson was 14 years old. So, obviously, I'm kidding there. Mike Tyson, Cus D'Amato. So we'll get to the Tyson-Douglas fight in another video. I was going to show you that, but I spent a little bit more time on some of Mike Tyson's amateur work. World Heavyweight Champion Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson, Friday, November 8th, 1991, live on pay-per-view. Now, that didn't happen until 96 because Mike Tyson would find himself in a little bit of trouble with a young lady. And here you have Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. Now, this fight was something else because the promotion of this fight went all over the place. When Mike Tyson was knocked out, February 10th of 1990, or 11th, because it was in Japan, Evander Holyfield was there because he was supposed to be fighting Mike Tyson. They kept shifting Evander Holyfield around, delaying that fight because Mike Tyson, every time he went into sparring, there was some issues. So he was supposed to fight Donovan Razor Ruddock in Canada. That fight fell through. Instead, they wound up fighting James Buster Douglas. And as we now know later on, that didn't work out for him. Mike Tyson and Evander the Real Deal Holyfield. Like I said, the promotions were out the window between these two men. There were all kinds of newspapers and write-ups about these two men. I got everything that I can find because I knew it was going to be historic. These are in plastic, so you're going to see glare. I'm just trying to show you what I can show you here. Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. The Animal versus the Gentleman. Will he keep it? Undisputed heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield. I remember Holyfield in the amateurs. How he looked then at the time. Holyfield was something else, man. So you have some historical facts that are in this book here. In fact, let's just see. My dad and I put this together here. So it just goes all the way back to Fitzsimmons and James J. Jeffries. They were the odds, 2-1 odds, 3-1 odds. Jack Dempsey and Jess Willard. Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney. Even money, odds, so on and so forth. Walcott versus Eddie Charles, the third fight. Charles was 6-1 odds. And these are some of the historical champions. The heavyweights. You had some great ones, man. Once again, the Great Heavyweight Showdown, and it gives you a historical breakdown. John O'Sullivan versus James J. Corbett, September 7th, 1892. That was the Carnival of Champions, the first great contest of gloved era. That was the first glove era. They were wearing 5-ounce gloves. James J. Corbett versus Bob Fitzsimmons, March 17th, 1898. Fitzsimmons was the local contender and title claimant, thanks to first-round KO of Peter Maher. Bob Fitzsimmons versus James J. Jeffries, June 9th, 1899. James J. Jeffries versus Jack Johnson, July 4th, 1910. And that would be known as Red Sunday, the aftermath. Red Summer. Red Summer. Jack Dempsey versus George Compartier, July 2nd, 1921. That was a 4-round demolish. That was the first $1 million gate. And then on and on and on, on and on and on. And it just gives you all the historical Tunney versus Jack Dempsey, and Joe Louis and Max Schmeling, Rocky Marciano, and Archie Moore, Sonny Liston, Cassius Clay, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Ali, Larry Holmes, Jerry Coon, Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks. Here we have the heavyweight champion undefeated when they won the crown. John O'Sullivan, James J. Corbett, James Jeffries, Rocky Marciano, Igmar Johansson, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Leon Spinks, Larry Holmes, John Tate. These are all undefeated fighters. Michael Dokes, Pinklin Thomas, Tony Tubbs, Michael Spinks, Mike Tyson, Tony Tucker, Evander Holyfield. Spinks is there twice because he was undefeated as light heavyweight as well as heavyweight. Betting odds on heavyweight title bouts. John O'Sullivan, James J. Corbett, September 7th, 1892. Sullivan was 3-1 odds. And then it goes on and on and on and on and on. Just open it up for you so you can take a look. Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey. The first fight was September 23rd, 1926. Dempsey 11-5 odds. Joe Louis and Max Money in the second one. That's interesting. June 22nd, 1938. Louis was 9-5 odds. Very, very interesting. Then it goes down and down and down and down and down. Muhammad Ali, Sonny Liston, their first fight, February 25th, 1964. Liston was 7-1 odds. Incredible. Incredible. Let's see, Evander Holyfield and Douglas. No, let's see, Mike Tyson and Michael Spinks. That was June 27th, 1988. Tyson was 8-5. Now let's look at Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. February 10th, 1990. Tyson was 42-1 odds. Incredible. Incredible. Heavyweight championship odds and ends. The former heavyweight champion attempting to recapture the crown. Corbett versus Jeffries. As you can see here, May 11th, 1900. And then it goes on and on and on. Louis Charles. All these men made an attempt to reclaim the title. None of them made it except for Floyd Patterson when he would defeat Igmar Johansson. So I just wanted to give you some ideas of these historical facts. Youngest to lose the heavyweight title, Mike Tyson, and so on and so forth. So, all right, I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series, stating all great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Complete history of boxing, right here on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. Peace.